We'll call to order this regular meeting of the MSRAC committee at 9:06. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the January 14th, 2022 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second. Steve moves to approve and Norma seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. Any not approvals?
Dissent.
Dissent? Okay, the minutes are approved. Item 3, correspondence. Did we get any?
Are we on?
I guess we're under regular MSRAC.
MSRAC. Was that, I mean, we've had some back and forth from the lot set, but we can talk about that under the lot.
Right.
Line item.
Okay, then
unless you want to talk about the correspondence from yesterday under this.
I think we can do that under other committee business. Is that
whatever you want?
So we'll say there, there's no correspondence that's not related to committee business or out of the blue. Number 4, citizens' comments. Any citizens sign in? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to 5, committee business. Item A, Eastern Connecticut Land Bank support letter. I just, since everybody on the committee voted that we send that letter, I did ultimately get around to writing it, and Tira and Marianne helped make it a stronger letter, so it's out there for everybody. And I just wanted to
very good work.
Thank you. Thanks to the help, Tira and Marianne. So item B, redevelopment of 630 Riverside Drive.
So we were talking about 630 the other day, and there's some stuff that we don't really want to address here, but I think it would be beneficial, Janet, for you and Wayne and I to sit down and sort of map out what is developable and possibly some concept designs for that to show to developers. As we were discussing, the fact that it is a brownfield, even though it's got the assessment, can be daunting. The fact that the developable area is so much smaller than the parcel itself could also be daunting. So if we have some ideas presented, say, here, you can still maximize, you can still profit off this property. And that's particularly if we get some opportunities for remediation under a brownfield like we did over here.
Yeah, that would be good. And also Amy brought up something about the dam being in part of the ownership of the property, which, could be, some people might think of that as a liability. But I thought Wayne thought it was a separate parcel. So I don't know that much about the ownership. I thought it went with it.
Well,
go with it. Okay.
If you look on the parcel map, there are 2 parcels under 630 Riverside LLC. Mm-hmm. One is the building site, mm-hmm. and the other is on the other side of the bridge. And that's the side that I presume includes the dam. And those are 2 separate parcels, but they are under common ownership. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, you could dump one without the other.
So the dam does belong to the mill site.
It certainly appears to online.
Okay.
I think
because that is a liability, not an asset.
In most cases.
Yes, I'll grant that. I'll grant that.
I mean,
I don't think this particular dam is anywhere near as vulnerable as the one up by Heritage Pond there.
Yeah,
I don't know what Heritage Pond is.
It's the big man-made pond behind the old KFC building.
Oh yeah, Grosvenordale Pond. Yes, that's what I've referred to that as.
No, you're right. It's Grosvenordale Pond in Heritage Park. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so yeah, that is a good thing to keep working on. And like you said, maybe if we can get Wayne over here someday, we can sit together and look at the new flood map. So any other thought on 630 Riverside Drive? Okay, then we can move along to item C, DECD Connecticut Community Challenge Grant update.
Well, there is no update yet. The notification period as posted is supposed to be the end of March or early April.
Okay.
In my experience, those are never on time. So I would say at least a month after that. But you know, that's a big one and an important one if we can get it. Now, I have no idea where we fall there. My feeling with DECD grants is they kind of tell people before the applications are even completed who's in line for this funding, but maybe not in this case because they had 88 applications for a total $50 million pool, and it's $1 million floor. So
so 50 out of 88, so only like 60%
at most 50 out of 88. Yeah. They are going to do a second round as well. For another 50 million, but
will that require a complete new application, or will they stay with the one you've already battled through?
I'm sure that I could amend and resubmit if I could get any feedback on what the deficits are in the application.
Yep.
Sometimes you can get that and sometimes you can't. I'm not sure that this case in which I could, just because I know about how many people they have reviewing those, and I know how many applications they have, so they might not be too keen on that. Also, I do have a second application theoretically kind of stacked up for that second round, having to do with Thompson Congregational Church. There's also nothing to prevent me from submitting two in that round, but having to certainly would dilute the effect, you know. You're never going to get both. Certainly not in the same round.
Right.
When does the second round come out?
I don't know. Presumably after they've made their first announcements. If I were to guess, I would say that it's after the fiscal year rolls.
Okay. Yes, no news is good news. We didn't get rejected.
Yeah. No news is literally no news.
Literally.
But not bad. Let's be optimistic. Okay, River Mill update. Item D, committee business.
We have received the draft proposal from DECD for the contract between the town and RMR, which is Gumper's company. Attorney Elkow and Wayne and John and I reviewed it earlier in the week, and Pam prepared a draft to send back to DECD. I sent that over to our attorney just for eyes on it, and also because we're going to have to draft a pass-through agreement between us and RMR. Because the town is technically the applicant, which means the award was to us, but we're not doing any of the work or incurring any of the expenses. So we have to pass it through to the developer, and the mechanism for that needs to be established. But it's still a legal document, and it's $2 million. So we want to make sure it's right.
Do they have any idea when they might people might actually see construction equipment on the site remediating things?
I think that there are some things that Wayne can do outside the scope of the grant pretty much as soon as they feel like they've got the right weather and circumstances. And the stuff on the grant itself, as soon as the ink is dry. But anything that needs to be paid for by grant funds can't be done until the contracts are all signed. So another couple months. But okay, you know, we're talking about this spring at some point. Things will start to happen. How visible the things that can happen right away are, I'm not entirely sure. But John Gumpert seems to think that they will be things that people will be able to notice. So.
Yeah, if they do any kind of excavation or clean up.
They are going to be doing some kind of pulling the sediments out of the tail race there. I myself am a little fuzzy which things the developer is paying for up front, which things Rexnor is paying for, and and which thing, or sanitary dash, or whatever they're called, and which things the grant are paying for in the remediation. I kind of feel like the sediments are coming out of Rexnor / sanitary dash, but I could be wrong about that. So you know, the order in which those things happen is not my strong suit.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Tiara about that new remediation grant or the process?
No. Good news.
Really good news.
Good to see some stuff
Definitely.
going on there.
Okay, then we shall move on to item E, Blaine Road intersection paving. I actually put this item on the agenda since we lost our public works director who knew about this project, was aware of its importance and getting it done before the sidewalk project starts. And Amy's not here either, so I guess perhaps the minutes can just reflect that we hope that the first selectman relays this important paving job time frame to the newly hired to be hired DPW director so that it still gets done.
Well, Rich did assure me that it is still on that calendar.
Okay.
Right, he passed the calendar over to the crew chief.
Okay.
Right, who
That is.
I don't even know.
So when on the calendar, this has really gotten to be a sore point. Do you know?
Yeah, well, I don't disagree, but I can understand how it gets pushed off. And before the sidewalk started, the fact that it got pushed off, I think, was not that big a deal. But theoretically, we are imminently going to see work on sidewalks as well. So those things should definitely be happening concurrently. But Rich did tell me before he left, like literally on his last day, it is on their calendar. And we were emailing back and forth a little bit on an unrelated matter with Kelly, you know, who was the admin over there. And she did refer to it. And in fact, let me see.
So, but we don't know when it was scheduled for on the calendar.
No,
like,
other than spring.
Yeah, just generally spring. But, you know, we've been listening to that for 3 years. So, well, 2 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, you know, it's a sore point with me.
Bernie and Joanne, Amy just came in. We're just talking about the Blaine Road intersection paving, Amy, just so Tiara was just letting us know that Rich had it on the calendar. So
it was.
So that it's still on the calendar, we're all hoping.
We're hoping that we get more of a full staff back. There are a couple key players within the Public Works Department that are good at reading blueprints, operating machinery, and a couple of them are still out right now. So, but it still is the full intention to move forward with that.
Great. And once these, well, that's kind of our other meeting, but the bar meeting, but the sidewalks are out to bid, then we'll really know when that contractor's starting. So that should help, you know, hone in the importance of what, you know, the criticalness of the time frame. Anything else on Blaine Road? I mean, we can talk under other committee business about that ECCD.
Okay, and actually, literally just this second, since we're on my laptop, I can see Dan just replied in that thread that he looked through Judy's files for the proposal and could not find any cost breakdown. That was the question that you had. French River watershed plan is too large to send via email, blah, 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 but I have copies.
Okay, so why don't we move on to that? I think we're all set with Blaine Road intersection paving, unless anybody has any other comments or questions. Okay, so we'll move on to other committee business. And I'm pretty sure now that I'm thinking about it, I think the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District actually did make a presentation to this committee.
They did. They definitely did.
And So that's why I guess it is appropriate to maybe at least discuss a little bit that proposal at this meeting. So, I mean, the town has to look into this more, but in 2018, Judy Rondo, through the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District, filed an application for a grant with DEEP to fund some stormwater, the installation of low impact development stormwater practices in the downtown. And it was so Thompson is the partner to get this, what is it, $130,000, and the locations to install these are, well, there's 4 locations. One is at the Thompson Town Hall. Install vegetated swale and bioretention basin. Number 2, install pervious pavers at the Thompson Library. Number 3, install vegetated swale at the Thompson Public School Complex. And number 4, install bioretention at the Thompson Public School Complex. These best management practices are described more in full in the French River Watershed Report that Judy produced. And so we just got an email that this is potentially still a valid grant, that the town could enter into a contract with DEEP to do. But like right now, I feel like nobody really understands the details of it because it was several years ago.
Well, it was before any of us were in our positions, really. So everybody's coming into it sort of going, huh? Now, Judy talked to me about it several times, but I never really had the full context. I still don't have the full context, but based on this thread from yesterday, I think we have more.
Right.
And still looking to find a full thread. Possibly on my laptop, but I believe Dan said that the funds from that grant have to be expended by, oh, here we go. Fiscal year 18 funding, so it needs to be spent by September of 2023. So that does tie in perfectly with the Blaine Road bump out if they can adjust their scope to include that. Because we're talking about, rain garden, LID measures to be included, not just the paving. And also with the sidewalk project, there is some landscaping included. So it might not make a full ton of sense for ECCD to be coming in and putting in vegetated swales, or if we've already got a contractor coming in and doing some of that.
Well, yeah, I think we definitely need to look at specifically what Judy had in mind. Like I have this feeling there ought to be like sketches. Like I know that there's roof drains and stuff that come off the town hall that could be directed into a rain garden or a swale. So it might not actually be near the sidewalk, so we wouldn't know that without looking at her sketches. And there is cost estimates, but most of these are pretty small. So like install bioretention at the schools, $3,300. Now maybe that could be replaced with bioretention at Blaine Road if the opportunity is there and there's going to be a town's already working there. So then it would be really efficient and not have to jump to some other site. But they install pervious pavers at the Thompson Public Library. They actually have a cost estimate of $81,000.
But are you talking the walkways or the parking area? I would assume the walkways.
Nobody knows, because that's why I think we need to look at what. Because Judy's gone and Rich is gone and Marianne is gone, and they might have all had something to do with this. So it just came to light like literally 2 days ago.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think I obviously have to get in touch with Dan Mullins. I had sent him an email a couple of weeks ago about maybe even about the Blaine Road thing, and he never did get back to me. But now that this is open, maybe the communication will be more efficient and direct. He might not have put my name, together with where I am, even though I have down in my signature.
Yeah,
But
but it might have just jogged his memory too.
maybe.
Now, since Judy isn't there. But
She is still on the Conservation Commission, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, she is.
She is. Oh, that's right, because you're on Conservation.
Oh,
So she is attending meetings.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay.
this could be an opportunity for Conservation and MSRAC to work together to push this forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Wasn't her main concern the water that was coming down from the school onto Route 12? So would that be addressed when you do the sidewalk before you get to Thatcher Road?
Some of it is in that that drainage piece that we had to get the right of way for on.
I thought that was really something that should be done and should be attended to, because that ice builds up on 12. So we want to make sure that's taken care of when they do the sidewalk. Yeah.
That's in that plan, right?
It should be. It's actually not what was proposed in this 319 grant, but it was addressed in the sidewalk project, and we should talk about that in a couple of minutes. We'll talk specifically about that. We had to get property owner permission.
So Judy is now working for DEP in Massachusetts.
Yes, out of the Worcester office. But I mean, from a person that I was emailing with regularly when she was working from home and for ECCD,
Yeah.
I haven't heard from her since she went to Worcester. So,
When did that happen?
Short time ago.
yeah, I think before you resigned from the Conservation Commission.
Oh. But she's still on conservation, right? She didn't walk away from that.
She is. I mean, yeah, she lives in town, but I think the
Yes.
demands of her new position are just such that, you know, and also as working for ECCD, she would have had professional reasons to be responding to me during the day as well.
Right.
But we can definitely check with her and see which buttons we should push.
Right, and just to look, I mean, the one good thing about this description is it literally tells you what page to look on in the watershed report for more information on those 4 areas. So even though Dan said he didn't find a breakdown of materials and labor, I feel like just seeing this is just only half the picture. We don't have that other.
That's the Word
report.
document that you
Yes.
emailed to me, right?
Yes, because
Yeah,
in the
okay.
first thread, you weren't in that one because, like I said, there was some confusion, I think, with the MS4. So this whole thing, it refers to see page such and such on the French watershed report. And the biggest number is $81,000 for pervious pavers at the Thompson Town Library. And I'm sure they did not, I shouldn't say that, but I would be reasonably sure that they would not think that the Public Works Department would be installing pavers, because that is a specialty contractor. So that would be interesting to see, like, if there really is a sketch, like where these pavers are, and if that includes both materials and labor for the town to just hire somebody and have it be paid for under this grant.
Let's get that rolling. Yeah, so I will obviously have to, you know, essentially starting next week, be in or maybe even today, depending on how my day rolls out, figure out with Dan what we actually need to do to push this forward, and where we might be able to shift some scope of work if that's appropriate.
Yeah, very interesting. I don't know if this was just like sitting out there, $130,000. I don't know.
You know, I knew they had a grant. I didn't realize how much it was. I thought it was like little penny ante, you know, $10,000, $15,000 to do a couple of rain gardens.
And it was Dan that brought it up, correct? And said in that email.
In this
that
one,
there's
yeah.
this grant.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Are you still interested?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like I said, every time, and Judy definitely mentioned it to me over the past couple of years, but the context in which it would come up, it never sounded like it was that much money. It always sounded like, well, we can do a couple of things here and a couple of things there. And I'm like, okay, so let's, and then it just never went anywhere. So, yeah.
Good. All right, so something to follow up on and look into. The only other thing that I had in my mind under other committee business is we all know that whole FEMA floodplain appeal business. I wondered, I assume we haven't heard anything. You think potentially just send an email to that Diane and say, have you heard?
I can do that. My feeling is that that is a part of what is in her regular old, I will do this for every town once these come out.
Okay.
But I can certainly.
She might just at least know if they put it off for another 2 months, or because it was supposed to be, wasn't it supposed to be like January?
Early 2022.
Right.
I think at some point somebody had suggested January. I don't know if that was ever officially the case. You know, first quarter maybe, which we're almost out of now. So yeah.
But I guess DECD must have felt it wasn't going to be a huge issue since they gave the $2 million to clean it up. So they must have some confidence.
It's all contingent on all kinds of things, according to the grant application and the proposal, but nobody's behaving as if any of these things will affect anything. So, I mean, they want to give us the money. So unless it's something that is absolutely catastrophically a deal killer, I don't think anything's going to disrupt that grant award.
Okay. Does anybody have any other committee business to discuss? Does anybody have an item 6 member comments? Then why don't we adjourn the MSRAC meeting and call to order the bar grant subcommittee meeting at 9:34. We need to approve the bar grant minutes from January 14th, 2022. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on the minutes of the bar grant? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Correspondence? Any correspondence not related to lot SIP? Any item 4, citizens' comments? Okay, then item 5, committee business. The number A, lot SIP Route 12 sidewalk project.
Well, we published the RFP for the construction inspection last Friday, definitely to our site last Friday. I think it took Marie a couple extra days to get it on the state website, but it is on the state website. And I can tell you what we settled on for time frame, if you bear with me 1 second. Here we go. Key dates. Request for information due March 18th, so that would be a week from today. That's for any questions from outside vendors based on what was posted. Submissions are due. All packets are due by the 4th of April, which is the first Monday of April. Proposals opened the next day at the first Board of Selectmen meeting in April. And then we have an evaluation date set for April 8th. So what we have not established who is on that evaluation committee, I assume that is three of us. We don't have a DPW director right now, so I don't know if there's somebody who can stand in that stead with more technical I mean, probably Janet's engineering experience is sufficient. I mean, do we need a fourth review person? I don't know.
What does the
What was the
proposal
date
say?
again? I'm sorry, what was the date?
The 8th of April.
We have one direct-
You think we could have one that quickly?
I think
Okay, so that would solve
there's
that.
a very vital.
And it may have said in the RFP, you don't have that handy, that there'll be a 3 or
I
4.
took that out because
Okay,
precisely
good.
because, and because it said including the first selectman and the director of public
Okay.
works. I can't make that claim.
Okay,
I'm taking
good.
all that out.
Good thing,
Yeah.
good thinking. And yeah, just so everybody is clear, what went out to bid was not the construction of the sidewalks. It was the RFP to get the inspector, the engineering firm who's going to assist with inspection.
Right, we are still waiting for the authorization to advertise, which every week we are told should take another week or so. It's the longest week in history.
So do we know how many firms have, since they look at the information online, have they signed up? Is the town tracking like who might be putting in a proposal?
That would be a question for Marie. I don't know if we have a mechanism to do that. And the state, some point last year, changed their platform for posting bids. I wouldn't be surprised if it could track that, but neither Marie nor I really is familiar enough with that portal to know where to navigate on there. Actually, my login doesn't even work anymore because after I signed up when they switched over, I didn't have anything to post, so they deactivated it. But Marie's is active, and she's got that posted, so she might be able to figure that out.
Right, and we certainly know that Freeman, who obviously designed the sidewalks, will be putting in a quote.
And on the state website, it shows you a list of all their vendors. And so I did make a point of scrolling down to make sure Freeman was listed on there. So I presume what that means is it sends an automatic notifier. And he knew we were posting it. But I should probably touch base with him just to make sure. Told him we were posting it that day. Other than that, we're just still waiting on CT dot.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to, I think we should talk about the drainage since Norma brought it up. Because of the flooding, and then Marla and everybody brought it up, where that stream comes down and hits the sidewalk and is able to go over. Well, one thing Marla did get Norm Miller, the DOT drainage engineer, to supposedly, now I don't know, I didn't follow through, maybe one of you guys know, to clean out because it was plugged. So theoretically, DOT went to go clean out the pipe. And does anybody know whether that happened?
I know at some point, I thought that it was flooding over less.
Okay.
And I think it was around that time. So it's possible that that was me subliminally being influenced by the fact that we said it had been cleaned out. And I do not remember it icing over, you know, driving back and forth over the winter. Now we haven't had a super cold winter, so that it could all be coincidental.
No, actually, I think it might be, because for years and years after the town complaining, finally, when they sent out their engineer, he acknowledged the problem, and I saw it in correspondence with Marla that he was going to send out the maintenance. So I think that is one thing that might have improved the situation, but also behind the sidewalk, there's going to be like a little swale or a ditch, which some riprap, which is going to force the water into the culvert under the road. And that was partially on private property. So the DOT required that the town get a letter from the property owner giving permission to temporarily get on their land. And we talked about that at our last meeting 2 months ago, and that was obtained. So that work
Literally
can
on the
go
day that
on.
we had decided if it doesn't come in today, we're gonna change the plan.
Right, so Freeman did design something to take care of that and got permission from the property owner to do it, so.
A comment, which is a little off. Yesterday, I heard the comment that they felt there should be a sidewalk as you go up Thatcher Road, because when you go up Thatcher Road, the kids are coming down and you kind of have to dodge the kids because there's no sidewalk there for the kids to come down. Is that a town responsibility or how?
Well, it's a town road, so if it was going to be retrofitted, it would be the town doing it. So I would say that is absolutely a road that should have a sidewalk, but it's much harder to retrofit. Discussing this the other day in the subdivision regulations review, it's much harder to retrofit a road with a sidewalk than it is to just build it right in the first place.
Right.
But that's the position we're in a lot of places, right? So
just
worth looking into.
For the safety of the kids.
Yeah.
I was talking to a teacher yesterday and she was saying, you know, we have to dodge the kids going up Thatcher Road.
Thatcher Road is relatively wide with the pavement, right?
I mean, it's
a drive.
It's certainly wide for its length, which I'm sure was at least partly designed because they definitely have school buses going in both directions. But also for its length, it gets high traffic use because it's in and out for the school. Right. So yeah, that is a road that absolutely should have been designed with a sidewalk, and was not. So once we get through all of these other things, it might be worth looking into, or possible grant programs. I mean, I can tell you that DOT in general has a priority for alternative transportation projects, pedestrian bicycle connections. And I think several grant programs that they have put out in the past would look very favorably, even though it's a very short stretch on that. But, we don't have a plan. So it's all very hypothetical.
Well, sidewalk is obviously the perfect solution, but in the interim, if the road is wide enough, a potential cheap solution is pavement parking. Because if somebody does if the road is split into like 3 sections, like the travel portion with a double yellow line, and then just put a white line for like a 4 or 5 foot shoulder on one side of the road, then that would keep the traffic on the other 2/3 of the road. I mean, there's nothing to stop the kids from not staying in their lane, but it would alert the drivers that they should all favor like whatever makes more sense, the right side or the left side. And pavement markings are inexpensive. So,
and the relatively good news is that it's also a relatively low speed road because of the way it's used. But yeah, it's certainly not ideally configured. Bollards might be a thing too, as opposed to.
And it's a very steep.
It is a steep street.
You think about the school connection. There's no pedestrian connection to that school.
There's a small one behind Town Hall. There's a footpath, which is also very steep. I know, I walked it a lot.
This other one that comes down from high school, there's kids.
Yeah, once you get up there, there's no walkways or sidewalks. Sure.
And because the road is so steep, I'm sure if a sidewalk goes in, it's gonna require drainage. Because it's going to add a curb, so catch basins are going to be required.
So bollards, in fact, might be a better solution.
So what would be a better solution?
Bollards. Something to coordinate with the markings to help physically define.
Then you have to snow plow it, so we have to snow plow the other side of it too. Bollards. Oh, yeah, we have.
Work for me later.
Let's put it on our list.
It's a really long one.
I just thought it was an important one. I thought I should bring it up because it's near the project you're working on.
Yes.
No, that's a great point.
And yeah, because there's going to be, you know, the perfect apron and properly designed ADA pad right when you get to the bottom on Route 12. So it could definitely tie in for sure. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on the Route 12 sidewalk project? Then I guess we can go on to B, other committee business associated with the bar grant. This could be our last or second to last meeting that we even have a separate bar grant agenda, because once the last check is sent, right, once it's closed out. So.
And I feel bad. Freeman has asked me a couple of times about a bill I've had outstanding since June, that I can't pay until I get their final bill, because DECD asked me to submit the final request. Since we're over the grant period, they asked me to submit the final request all at once. They know why it is we haven't submitted it, but I still feel like a heel every time the subject comes up.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay, item 6, member comments. Yeah, I guess we can be adjourned. 9:48.
We're efficient.
We're so efficient today.
It's easy to be efficient when you're just waiting for stuff.
Right, and we didn't have any guests. No guests.
Get ready for interviews.
Good luck.
Good luck.
I really liked your article on the selectmen's update.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. A little offbeat, not typical.